Ladies and gentlemen, councillors, Pauline Hart will give prayers.
Good evening. I'm Reverend Pauline Hart. I'm the Associate Priest out at Alresford, Elmsted and Follington. And I'm here standing in for Reverend Andrew Fordyce, who's the rector there, who is Gary's chaplain. I'm sort of just standing this evening, and it's a great privilege to be here. I was brought up in Walton, so I'm definitely a Tendring girl. Before I pray, let's just take a moment just of quiet to lay aside our concerns of the day so that we can focus on what we're here for and consider the awesome responsibilities placed on you all. Father God, I thank you for the people here that have been called to the privilege of service to the communities of the Tendring area. Give them wisdom and humility and kind hearts in their discussions, debates, and decisions. Help them to be good stewards of the community's resources and of your creation. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, councillors. Item number 1, apologies for absence. Mr. Davidson.
Thank you, Chairman. I've had apologies from Councillor Cots, Councillor Harris, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Wiggins, Councillor Leonard and Councillor Alexander. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2, minutes of the meeting, pages 1 to 46. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to move them.
Second, Chairman.
Thank you. All agreed? That's agreed. Thank you. Item number 3, declarations of interest. Councillor Zoe Fairley.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to declare a disclosable pecuniary interest and non-registrable interest in item 14 on the agenda, Councillor Everett's motion relating to the North Wales project transport proposals. The land area to be impacted by the proposed cable routes and substations within the district of Tendring is vast, but my immediate family do own and farm some land along these routes. This is the same for the wider family members and friends. I've been granted a dispensation under section 33(2)(c) of the Localism Act 2012, allowing me to participate and vote. The reason for the decision is on the grounds that it is in the interests of persons living in the authority's area for this dispensation to be granted. I'm the sole ward councillor for Ardley and Little Bromley. The council does have an opportunity to voice its residents' and businesses' concerns and act in the best interests of the district, and the council will not be the decision maker regarding these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairley. Any others? Thank you. Item number 4, announcements by the chairman. Over the last few weeks, it's been quite an eventful time for myself and Councillor Casey, my vice chair, and we had the privilege of going to many events. It's too many to mention, but ones I will mention are the Syncport Liberty of Brightlingsea, Grassroots AGM, Jack Petchey Foundation, Davy and Co, Summer Opening Day, Tendring Show, and Alresford Picnic in the Park, and a few others that I will mention at future down the line. But yes, it's been an eventful few events, and I really do appreciate those organisations and communities that invited myself and Councillor Casey to these events. Thank you. Item number 5, announcements by the Chief Exec, and there are none. Item number 6, statements by the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Chairman. As at the moment, I haven't got one, so I'm going to say thank you very much for the offer.
Thank you. Item number 7, statements made by members of the Cabinet, if any. There's none. Item number 8, petitions to Council, report to the Executive Chief Exec. A1, petitions to Council suspense property dealings and development of TDC land parcels in Great and Little Oakley, offer of land of parish councils, pages 47 to 48. And that's moved. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the petitioners, and I will so move it.
Seconded.
Seconded, Chairman.
Thank you. That's agreed. Thank you. Item number 9, report of the Chief Exec. A2, petitions to Council, Beach Hut lease changes, pages 49 to 50. Councillor Stevenson.
That's me again. Yes, my thanks to the petitioners once again, Chairman, and I would also like to move that to be noted.
Seconded.
Yeah, I'd like to second that, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. That's all agreed? Agreed, thank you. Item 10, questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 10.1, pages 51 to 52. Mrs. Jan Vincent, if you'd like to come forward to the table, please. Make yourself comfortable. And when you're ready, press the button and the lights will illuminate.
Okay.
Yeah.
My question is, will Tendring District Council please issue a section 215, the Town and Country Planning Act, on Golden Bell Limited, landlord of the Bel Air Chalet Estate, St Osoph Beach, to have the rubbish shown in the attached photos removed and the estate cleared and cleaned to a reasonable state in accordance with 215 power to require proper maintenance of land. 1. If it appears to the local planning authority that the amenity of a part of their area or of an adjoining area is adversely affected by the condition of land in their area, they may serve on the owner and occupier of the land a notice under this section. 2. The notice shall require such steps for remedying the condition of the land as may be specified in the notice to be taken within such period as may be so specified. 3. Subject to the following provisions of this chapter, the notice shall take effect at the end of such period as may be specified in the notice. 4. That period should not be less than 28 days after the service of the notice. I trust Tendring District Council Planning Authority will consider the amenity is adversely affected by the condition of land in the Tendring District as the photos show. May I request that the photos are shown to all councillors to ensure they are aware of the appalling state of this part of St Osoph, Tendring. May I have a written copy, please, of the answer that's provided today?
Thank you, Mrs. Vincent. If you'd like to stay there and turn your mic off, I'll get the Councillor Maria Fowler to respond. Councillor Maria Fowler.
Thank you, Chairman. Mrs. Vincent, thank you for your question. And I recall that in July of last year, you asked my predecessor, Councillor White, if the council would issue a notice under Section 215 of the Town and Country Planning Act to tackle the poor standards of the roads and lighting at Bel Air. The question this time is that the council issues a Section 215 notice to seek the removal of rubbish and the cleaning and tidying of the estate. As advised last year by Councillor White and our then Assistant Director of Planning, it was not considered appropriate at that time to issue the Section 215 notice, mainly because the roads and lighting were internal to the privately owned chalet estate that are not adopted nor available to the general public. Therefore, the amenity enjoyed by the wider public and neighbours was not affected. And I understand, however, at this time, based on the photographs provided by yourself, some of the rubbish in question is visible and affects public land. Accordingly, there could be a detrimental impact on the public amenity and a stronger case for action. Our planning enforcement team is investigating the matter further and will be giving serious consideration to the use of Section 215 if required, but must consider informal action first. And I shall ask our Director of Planning to keep me updated on those investigations. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler, and Mrs. Vincent, more than welcome to sit in the public gallery. Thank you. Item number 11, report of the Leader of the Council, urgent cabinet or portfolio hold decisions, if any. There are none. Item 12, minutes of the committees, pages 53 to 128. Councillor Stevenson.
Chairman, I'm happy to move them en bloc.
Seconder.
Seconded, Chairman.
All agreed? Thank you. Agreed. Item number 13, motion to council on notice procedure to Rule 12, Misty Norman Primary School. Mrs. Hastings would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Chairman. I've been requested to just clarify the procedure for motions this evening. It was changed at the full council meeting in March in readiness for the first meeting post the first ordinary meeting post the election. So this is that first meeting. So I thought I would confirm that the procedure is no longer that there is a requirement to explain why the motion needs to be dealt with and heard on the night. There is a automatic presumption that the motions will be debated on the night once moved and seconded. If there was any professional advice given to members before the meeting as to the inappropriateness of the motion being dealt with on the night, that would be provided to all members and would be repeated in the council meeting as well for everybody to be aware of. So on that basis, the two motions that you have on your agenda this evening can be debated on the night. So I hope that clarifies the position for everybody. So the mover will move their motions, read out the text, then you get a seconder. Once you have a seconder, the mover then will explain their motion, and then we go to the normal rules of debate. And each councillor has 3 minutes on which to speak.
Thank you, Mrs. Hastings. Back to the agenda, item number 13, motions, Misty Norman Primary School. Councillor Guglielmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And before I move the motion, I just really wanted to have some clarification on the seconder, whether the seconder has the automatic right to speak at the end before the portfolio holder or the mover. If you could clarify that, Ms. Hastings, that would be quite good. Thank you.
Mrs. Hastings.
Thank you, Councillor Guglielmi. So yes, so once the debate is sort of being wrapped up, as it were, then the seconder has the opportunity to speak at the end, then the mover, and then the either the leader or the relevant portfolio holder or chairman of committee would speak last.
Thank you. Councillor Guglielmi.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Yes, I would like to move a motion as printed in the agenda, and I will read the text and come to the motion. This council is aware that Mr. Norman Primary School shuts down its doors to pupils at the end of the Easter term just gone. He's also aware that the Diocese of Chelmsford Vine School Trust took the decision to close the school when reinforced autoclave aerated concrete was discovered. This is known as RAC. This is a lightweight material used in the 60s primarily because it was a cheap way to provide building such as schools. But sadly, it can collapse without warning. To repair the problem, the necessary work have been estimated to cost 1.9 million, staggering amount of money. Council notes that the arrangements were made to transport pupils by bus to nearby Lawford Church of England Primary School, only 3 miles away from Mistley, which fortunately has space capacity following the extension of 7 new classrooms last year. It also notes that, very unfortunately, on Thursday, 13th of June, the CEO of the Vine Trust took the decision to write to all parents without consulting with Essex County Council to inform them that, and this is verbatim from the letter sent to them, there are no funds available to undertake necessary repairs. The school building cannot be used for the foreseeable future and quite possibly ever again. Unfortunately, the school is no longer able to finance the free bus. Therefore, parents and carers will have to transport their own children to and from Lawford if they wish to keep them with us. Council should also be conscious that the CEO, following a huge backlash from parents, sent a second letter on Thursday, 15th of June, again with no consultation with the County Council Education team, which said, Mistley Norman will not be closing at the end of this term, and we expect children to return in the autumn term. We'll be arranging for the school to continue, but in a different setting. Sadly, there was no mention of transport to the alternative setting. Council is also informed that a parents' meeting was organised on the following evening, Friday 16th of June, when disappointingly, Councillor Terry Barrett and myself, as the 2 ward councillors, were refused entry. But it is understood that the CEO told parents that this setting was 10 miles away in Ramsey and that the free bus would continue, which was a U-turn on what the letter that was sent out 2 days before. Council struggles to understand how driving school an extra 20 miles each day, 5 days per week, will be better than the current 6 miles. Council is also concerned that so far the CEO has not provided this council with an opportunity to support the dozens of extremely worried parents whose children's future education was hanging in the balance. Council is also concerned that, going by the information provided to us, the CEO seemed to have completely dismissed the possibility of securing the necessary funding and that Mistley would be deprived of much value and much needed primary school, especially when there are still well over 700 new family homes to be built, all underway and with planning permission. Council is also greatly concerned that in view of this uncertainty, the Vine School Trust has already made up its mind to shut the school for good. Therefore, it requests the leader of the council, the cabinet member for partnership and the council's chief executive to work alongside our colleagues at Essex County Council, the regional director, formerly the school commissioner, and the MP for Harwich and North Essex to ensure that the Vine School Trust secures funding to carry out either the necessary repair or demolish the current building and replace it with a fit-for-purpose sustainable new structure. And further request that its officers work with Essex County Council to ensure that the future of the nearby newly built preschool is safeguarded, given the chronic shortage of early year places in the area, and to identify an alternative operator, should the Trust choose not to run the setting any longer. I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Guglielmi. Do we have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to second that, please, and reserve the right to speak at the end of the debate.
Councillor Barrett, thank you. Councillor Guglielmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As it's been said, in April 2023, evidence was discovered that RAC was in the walls as well as the ceilings of the school. So therefore, the decision to close the school was taken very hastily. Understandably, because obviously the safety of children and staff, it's obviously the first step to take. As my motion said, and some of the information within the motion is now been superseded by event, because at the time that we submitted the motion, it was because of the deadlines. Things have happened since then. Accommodation was secured at Lawford C of E Primary School, but apparently it could not fulfil the requirement of Miss Lee Norman, so therefore the Trust decided to offer to parents to move their children elsewhere. Unfortunately, this offer was made in such a way that it was almost impossible for parents to accept that there was an alternative. The school is in Ramsey, which is an extra 6.5 miles away from Miss Lee, and it will lengthen the journey of the children to transport them there. And of course, you know, that time of the morning when parents are bad enough to get ready at that time of the day, when you go out an extra half hour, you've got your work cut out, haven't you? The school has had a couple of reports from Ofsted which required improvement, and it makes you wonder whether this was a way out for the school to wash its hands out of it, which it's just, you know, it's just very, very strange that the two things came side by side. But the Trust has assured us it's not the case, but we still remain convinced that this was not behind. A second letter was sent out to the parents telling them that what the first letter was not right. So the whole thing has been mismanaged, Mr. Chairman, and we are very, very concerned about the fact that we were denied access, a democratic right to represent parents there, when some really complex information, one of the statements from parents was, this is very difficult for us to get our heads around. All we want is for our children to get educated and not to be brainwashed by things of information. Events have superseded. At the LGA conference, I was able to put a direct question to Secretary of State, Right Honourable Gillian Keegan, who had already been made aware of the situation, and I've also secured a meeting with the Minister on Thursday, Baroness Barron, who deals with school buildings. So we have got good headway at the moment. But it would be really, really good if the whole council could get behind us and add the weight and give us the support we need to make sure that the ultimate goal to rebuild a new school is achieved. As I move, Chairman. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Councillor Guglielmi. The seconder, Councillor Terry Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. At the heart of this motion is a request for this council to give Miss Lee Norman as much support as possible, its officers, its key portfolio holders and members, to help and support this school at a time of great need. But we should do all we can to work with Essex County Council, the local MP, Vine Schools Academy Trust, to ensure the best decisions are taken for the children, the parents and the community of Miss Lee. Vine Schools Academy Trust needs all of its key stakeholders to work with it and guide it to make the best and most appropriate decisions for Miss Lee Norman School. It's very important to campaign hard and to maintain pressure for this school to remain open in the short term and the long term. 700 houses are being built in the locality, 400 of which are most certainly family homes. That evidence alone suggests there is a future for this school. A school is not just an educational institution, it's a key part of a local community, and the people of Miss Lee need their school. I therefore wholeheartedly support this motion and ask my colleagues on both sides of the hall to support this motion as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Now we go to debate. We have Councillor Fairley.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to speak in favour of this motion. It's quite scandalous that so many public buildings were built in the 60s and 70s using this awful material. Generous side of me thinks this was due to lack of materials, therefore not much choice in the matter. The more cynical side of me is more inclined to think that perhaps this was a calculated strategy to build schools, hospitals, community halls and other public buildings as cheaply as possible. Unfortunately, we cannot go on a witch hunt, as chances are those responsible are no longer with us. It would not serve any real purpose. But we must do everything within our power to make sure that this is fully addressed and rectified. I understand that Councillor Guglielmi has been tenaciously involved in getting the Secretary of State for Education, her Undersecretary, Essex County Council and the Vine School Trust to talk to each other, and that this work is in progress. It is vital to ensure that all children and their parents and carers have a clear understanding of what's going on, that their education pathway is as unaffected as it can be with the alternative arrangements until a long-term solution is found. I do feel extremely sorry for all of the uncertainties that all those involved must be going through, especially after the Trust wrote to all parents to inform them that the school would very possibly not reopen at all, that transport would cease at the end of this month. This early stage of education of young children is so credibly impactful on their future, especially when we consider the harm that the COVID pandemic has caused to so many thousands of them. So let's do all we can to give them all some stability and assurances that the powers that be are doing all they can to address a very sad situation which is not of their making. Therefore, I fully welcome the proposal that the leadership of this council should lobby and work together with Essex County Council, the Regional Director, formerly School Commissioner, the MP for Harwich and North Essex, and the Vine School Trust to secure a long-term solution, preferably the provision of a new school, given the fact that to throw almost £2 million to repairing a building that is not fit for purpose does not make any logical sense. It'd be great if we could all support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairley. Councillor Andy Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't going to speak to this motion, but having heard Carlo, I think it's only right that I should. I fully support it, knowing the areas I do and knowing how much housing has been built and the huge increase in population within that ward alone. To lose a school is just not right. And I would hope that everybody here supports the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Genia Placey.
Stand up. I just feel, as I mentioned in the motion, I would just like to say that I add my support wholeheartedly, and anything that I can do and the department can do to help you, Carlo, we're there.
Thank you. So no more speakers? Councillor Guglielmi.
Chairman, I'm very heartened by the comments of members around the room. It is something that could happen to any location, because this is a problem that has been to build stuff on the cheap doesn't work. We still got buildings built in the 18th century which are standing the test of time and standing very, very proud. And okay, they're very problematic to heat and to keep, but even these buildings that were built in the 60s, they're completely non-energy efficient, they're cold, they cost an arm and a leg to heat. So you've really not produced anything worthwhile. It is work in progress. I do plan to also launch change.org global, as globally could go, petition to add some emphasis on how important it is to secure. As Councillor Barrett has mentioned, you know, Mistley, Manintree and Lawford are the fastest growing area in the district. We've enjoyed a huge amount of houses. The 400 that he was talking about, new homes, are on top of what's already there. Mistley is also an area where the school sits. It has got pockets of deprivation. There are some social issues there, and there is an awful lot of parents of low income which cannot afford the car, they don't drive. So to expect them to send their children elsewhere and foot the bill for the transport is completely and utterly unacceptable. So the only solution will be, in conversation with Essex County Council, they are quite happy to reroute some of the funding secure for school places from developments that's happening in the area and allocate that to the, you know, whatever funding secured. I was very heartened again to hear the comments from Gillian Keegan, who seemed very well briefed on the case, and she actually said we will await for an application and relevant information to be supplied to us, and we will then make a decision whether to include it in the apparently there is 101 schools new school build program, and we're hopeful to get that in there. I think that the next steps will be, if funding is allocated, to actually deliver it, it's going to be quite difficult. At the conference, we heard one of the delegates saying funding had been agreed to them, but the school would only be delivered in 2028. Now, this is really what I would like the council to, once a letter goes out, to make sure that it is done immediately, because it is not a long-term solution to bus the children out when you put a 5-year-old bus on a 10-mile journey each way. It's not really convenient. So I'm very grateful for his comments, and hopefully we'll get a good result from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guglielmi. Now we go to the leader, Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. Good to go back to the good old days of fashioned debate, not sending it off to the committees and then having it come back 6 months later. I rise to support the motion, and I congratulate both the councillors on a well-written motion. It really set out the stall for us. RAAC, as Carlo mentioned it, is a terrible thing. And when we identify the risk, we have a duty to keep people safe, and in this case, the children. And I think it's a very sad situation when an organisation keeps representatives from its public gatherings. If we are to be councillors, we must be allowed into those meetings, and we must be able to speak to the people who elected us. When we discussed this as an administration, we were quick and unanimous to support this motion. And that will be reflected tonight, I'm sure. My promise to you, as the leader of this council, is that I'll keep not only your motion, but I'll keep you copied in to everything that we do in support of these actions. And we'll also discuss with you on how we take this forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. The motion has been moved by Councillor Guglielmi and seconded by Councillor Barrett. Please raise your hands if you're in favour of the motion. I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That motion has passed. Item number 14, motion to council on notice under Council Procedures Rule 12, Northfields Project Transport Proposals, pages 131 to 132. Councillor Richard Everett.
On a point of procedure, do I read out the original or the amended version, please?
Sorry, Mrs. Hastings almost promoted you.
That's an opinion. Councillor Everett, you need to read the motion as printed in the agenda first. We are aware, obviously, you wish to amend it, but we need to just have that moved and seconded first.
Thank you, Mrs. Hastings. Councillor Richard Everett.
Thank you. This council is aware that the District of Tendring has seen a series of proposals come forward to transport green energy from where it is being produced to where it will be needed. The first proposal, East Anglia Green, which is being led by National Grid, held its non-statutory consultation last year and is seeking to provide the necessary and vital infrastructure to process and transport this energy. Two further schemes, the Five Estuaries and North Falls, will be reliant on the provision of this to progress their individual projects. It is also aware that North Falls is currently consulting on a £2 billion proposal to link the offshore wind farms to a National Grid substation located between Ardleigh and Little Bromley. Should the East Anglia Green project linking Norwich to London be approved by the Secretary of State, the North Falls project will entail substantial construction effort over 3 to 4 years, affecting much of the Tendring Council area. The principle of gaining a community benefit from this project for the areas affected has not been given any consideration in the consultation. The North Falls consultation finishes on the 14th of July. Believes that if the Secretary of State is mindful to approve National Grid's East Anglia Green proposal, the North Falls transport proposals will be inadequate. Therefore notes that the North Falls project proposes building a temporary haul road around Thorpe-le-Soken, Little Bromley and Ardleigh for elements of the works traffic, whilst all of the heavy equipment will still need to be transported through the villages. Further notes that there's been a long-standing argument for a Thorpe-le-Soken bypass and supports a permanent road as part of the project that will not only remove any heavy equipment from the village, but also be a worthy long-term legacy of this important project, and therefore calls upon the Leader of the Council to write to the North Falls project, the government and Essex County Council, to include this permanent road within the scheme, as well as asking them to develop plans to provide cheaper electricity to all the villages along the route, to develop a compensation scheme to all landowners and farmers involved, and to set up a compensatory fund to be used by Essex Highways for the eventual reinstatement of any highways asset damaged and overused during construction.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. And your seconder is, please? Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to second this motion and reserve my right to speak later in the debate.
Thank you. So, councillors, Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm grateful. I rise to support this motion. To my mind, one of the most important things councillors do is to represent the people who live within their district. That's what we do.
Councillor Bray, hold on, mate. Sit down. I made a mistake. Sit down.
Oh, got the wrong order.
Chairman, if I may, I think that Councillor Everett may want to move an amendment now, which is then what you will want to debate. I wouldn't presume that, but if you would like to.
Thank you. Hence my.
I do apologise, Councillor Bray. I got carried away. So we go back to Councillor Everett to propose his amendment to the motion. Councillor Everett.
Thank you. I need to make an amendment pursuant to CPR 16.6, which you have all got in front of you. And do I need to read it out again, or can we take that as read?
Yes, Councillor Everett, fire away. You need to read it out.
This council is aware that the District of Tendring has seen a series of proposals come forward to transport green energy from where it is being produced to where it will be needed. The first proposal, National Grid's Great Grid Upgrade, Norwich to Tilbury, formerly known as East Anglia Green, held its non-statutory consultation last year and is seeking to provide the necessary and vital infrastructure to process and transport this energy. Further schemes, three further schemes, the Tarshon Interconnector, 5 Estuaries and the North Falls, will be reliant on the provision of this to progress their individual projects. Requests officers to invite and host North Falls, 5 Estuaries, Tarshon Interconnector and National Grid to a briefing for tendering district councillors on the collective impacts of their projects. Is also aware that North Falls is currently consulting on a £2 billion proposal to link the offshore wind farms to a National Grid substation located between Ardleigh and Little Bromley. Should National Grid's Norwich to Tilbury project be approved by the Secretary of State, the North Falls project, together with the 5 Estuaries and Tarshon Interconnector, will entail substantial construction effort over 3 to 4 years, affecting much of the Tendring Council area. The principle of gaining a community benefit from this project for the areas affected has not been given any consideration in the consultation. North Falls consultation finishes on 14th of July 2023. Believes that if the Secretary of State is mindful to approve National Grid's Norwich to Tilbury proposal, the North Falls transport proposals will be inadequate. Therefore notes that the North Falls and 5 Estuaries projects propose building a temporary haul road around Thorpe-le-Soken, Little Bromley and Ardleigh for elements of the works traffic, whilst all of the heavy equipment will still need to be transported through the villages. Further notes there's been a long-standing argument for a Thorpe-le-Soken bypass and supports the exploration of a permanent road as part of the project that will not only remove any heavy equipment from the village, but also be a worthy long-term legacy of this important project, and therefore calls upon the Leader of the Council to write to the North Falls and 5 Estuaries projects, the Government and Essex County Council, to include this permanent road within the scheme, as well as asking them to develop plans to provide cheaper electricity to all the villages along the route, to develop a compensation scheme to all landowners, farmers involved, and to set up a compensatory fund to be used by Essex Highways for the eventual reinstatement of any highways asset damaged and overused during construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'm completely confused about how we're dealing with this. I thank so much, so I shall speak now, if I may. Is that within the rules?
I will find that.
Thank you very much.
Just to clarify, therefore, you're now debating the amendment. If that is subsequently passed, that will then become the substantive motion, and then you will vote on that as the substantive motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chief Executive. I shall sit down and take my place until I'm called by the chairman.
In terms of Councillor Turner's, in accordance with the Constitution, you can speak at later in it, or if you speak now, then you're not able to speak at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Everett, please explain your amendment, please.
Thank you. This motion is primarily about the North Falls project, consultation for which ends on Friday. Let me be clear, I am all for offshore wind farms and renewable energy. However, I'm against the Great Grid Upgrade Norwich to Tilbury, and I am up for supporting the interconnection of London to the wind farms offshore. But I'm a realist and a pragmatist. If the Great Grid Upgrade Norwich to Tilbury goes ahead, these projects will happen. There are now 3 of them: North Falls, Five Estuaries, and Torshon Interconnector. There will be a massive impact on tendering. Cables to be constructed by cut and cover from the landfall to Little Bromley and Ardley. There'll be a huge compound at Great Holland to which HGV traffic needs to get, both plant and materials, including abnormal loads. This extra HGV traffic has to pass through Thorpe-le-Soke and High Street to get there, or alternatively, Clacton and Holland-on-Sea. The North Falls Pier predicts an extra 34% HGV traffic through Thorpe and a 30 to 34% increase through Clacton and Holland-on-Sea because the HGV loads cannot all pass through Thorpe. The route through Clacton passes through St John's, Eastcliff and St Bart's wards. North Falls are going to create a haul road the length of the project, including around Thorpe, but this haul road will not take the extra HGV traffic planned to go through Thorpe Village and Clacton. The area of tendering is going to suffer for 3 to 4 years with the effects of this project. We get nothing out of it. They just fly in, construct, and fly out again with no long-term legacy planned for the project at all. I'm saying we should gain something for tendering, a community benefit. Thorpe has been advocating a bypass for years. It is a major bottleneck for anyone trying to access the Sunshine Coast, and the Planning Inspectorate have already indicated that Thorpe High Street is at or near capacity. If the project is building a road round Thorpe, we think it should be a permanent road, not a temporary one that's decommissioned immediately after the project is finished. The villages and towns affected, and that includes Clacton and Holland-on-Sea, should benefit from cheaper electricity if we're to endure 3 to 4 years of disruption to our lives. A postscript. I mentioned some figures about North Falls. Add together the Five Estuaries and Torshon Interconnector, and you can treble those figures. So a 34% increase in traffic for North Falls would equate to roughly 100% increase in HGV traffic and will decimate our tourist industry, with tourists unable to get to the Sunshine Coast because of the jams created by too many lorries on inadequate roads in our district. Finally, I do not see this issue as being party political, and I'm keen to accommodate suggestions from this chamber. If there are issues you feel that require an amendment to this motion, then we will be open to that. I would like to think that this is non-party political issue and we could gain unanimity on this subject. I commend the motion to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. Now we go to the debate. First person on the list is Councillor Bray. You can start now.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll have another go. Don't feel bad. It's very difficult up there. I know that, particularly when they keep changing the rules. So you have my sympathy, absolutely. I had started, much of what I'd like to say I think has been well covered and will be well covered by speakers coming. This is not a party political issue. If the Secretary of State is minded to go ahead with this project, it is huge. It benefits others, not us, yet it causes problems for us, many of them. And we've seen large projects across the country, and I think back to the London Olympics, where they suffered the same kind of thing. And what they got for that was something back. And that's what we're talking about here. What we're asking to do here, because of course we don't have the power to give ourselves something back, they won't let us do that. But what we're asking is for our leader to contact those who can, the government, the company responsible, and Essex County Council. And what I would ask, and I will keep this very brief because there are those with more knowledge than I, but I would ask today that we stand up for the people of tendering, all of us, united. It's not party political. And if we're going to ask our leader to go to these groups, these large, powerful organisations, I think it's only right that all of us should be behind our leader when he does so. Therefore, I would ask every single one of us to please support this motion and give the leader the support he needs to drive this forward for us and for our residents. Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Bray. Next councillor is Councillor Daniel Land.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to add my 2 pence worth, being the ward councillor for the area, and I actually did ring Councillor Everett and say, it's good to have you back, Richard, because he is quite a dog with a bone when he gets his teeth into things. As the ward councillor, parish chairman, county councillor for Thorpe, we discuss at regular intervals the need for a solution, and that's all it's ever discussed as, is a solution to Thorpe Open High Street. I've had visits from our dear Chief Executive. I've had visits from officers from Essex County Highways. We've had, as Councillor Everett explained, inspectors from Her Majesty's Planning say that Thorpe Open is at peak, it's struggling, and that there should be no further development. I think west was the terminology within some of the reports we read. But of course, that pales into insignificance, and this issue is slightly different. A bypass was muted shortly after I was born in 1982, I believe, and it was put to the people of Thorpe and the residents at the old Linnets Hotel, I think it was the Linnets in Wheelie. And I believe at that time it was thought and seen not to be a good solution for the businesses and the village. A traditional village with traditional shops back in the 80s, you can imagine, was very much in need of the footfall that the shops would benefit from. However, I've mentioned this term solution. We have not found a solution as the traffic, as the weight of traffic, as the volume of traffic has increased through our village. Suffering from many of the issues that other small villages will talk about also within their parish meetings on social media networks, shaking houses, poor road surfaces, pollution, speed, dropping of rubbish. The list goes on and on. I won't go on and on. This is a flicker of hope. Sometimes you find a flicker, and that flicker could potentially, out of this motion, grow into something big. I attended both the North Falls initial consultation at Frinton, or the other way around, the other one. Then I went to the other one at a different location, and to see these highly paid experts all coming from other parts of England to put forward this wonderful solution of green energy, which none of us here will see any benefit from when it comes to our bills and the cost that is printed at the bottom right-hand corner of those bills. And they can't answer that question every time. But of course, I did mention and ask about legacy, and I always do that if we have developers that come along. I always ask, what are we getting back from this? And I hadn't been clever enough to think of this one, so I can't honestly once again thank my colleague behind me or colleagues behind me for really putting their thoughts together and coming up with this potential idea of having this relief road adopted permanently around Thorpe after the project is finished. I'm out of time. So I very much support this motion. The people of Thorpe will I'm sure, find this to be part of a solution. It certainly won't be the whole solution. And I hope that you all feel the same on all parts of the chamber. And once again, a good motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Land. Next councillor is Councillor Carlo Guglielmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do welcome this motion. We seem to be bombarded in tendering by proposals to transport green and renewable energy. And as Councillor Hewitt said, I don't think you find one single person that would disagree with that. What I would really find quite hard to understand is that there has been no plan, no strategy to transport this energy, which was long known by successive governments that this somewhere on the line would happen. So I do commend the work of a group of East Anglian MPs who are trying to get government to think again about the National Grid proposal, formerly called the East Anglia Green, now known as Norwich to Tilbury project. All these sideline projects, Mr. Chairman, are all reliant on the National Grid being approved. So these are all speculative projects in front of us that if the Norwich to Tilbury falls, then the others will not go ahead because they all rely on the infrastructure provision. Now, the interesting thing is with this is that this motion is proposing to fill our shopping basket with goodies, as much goodies as we can, because it's a private enterprise, unlike the National Grid, which the maximum grant they can give out is about a couple of £1,000, I think, to communities, which he wouldn't know where to wash his face. Exactly a year ago, I delivered a speech in this chamber, as well as Essex. I think there's a theme there, the July meeting, it's double up, morning and in the evening. Many of us have been there this morning, haven't we? To talk about why National Grid should consider underwater cable. There is a project known as the Morocco Green that's going to transport 3,800 kilometres of energy from Morocco to Scotland. It's underwater. Now, National Grid are saying, no, that can be done, it's too expensive. Now, the people who are doing the providing the cable is a firm based in Billericay, is produced in a factory in Eastbourne, is led by a Scottish firm. So what more nationalist than that can you get? So it's really kind of, so I'm hoping that the MPs convince government to throw that out, so therefore all this will fall. But just on the North Fall development, you're talking about crops being sterilised for a long time. You're talking about highways assets being even worse than what they are now. Believe me, they will get worse than what they are now. If you think you've got potholes now, you'll have craters by the time they're finished. And the carbon emission that it will produce, it will take generations to be offset. And the thousands and thousands of tons of concrete that are going to be pumped into the ground, you know, it's beyond belief, you know. And the destruction of the countryside will be long-lasting and probably never recovered. So I will support the motion. I hope everybody else will get on board with us, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Guglielmi. Councillor Zoe Fairley.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to share a little bit of information, more detailed information in terms of traffic impact for my particular ward, Ardley and Little Bromley. Like Councillor Everett, I'm pro offshore wind farms and renewable energy, but my preference, like many others, is for National Grid Norwich to Tilbury substation, together with the proposed and emerging substation cable connections, to go offshore. I strongly oppose onshore infrastructure in tendering for these developments. There's some very good points made about traffic impact for our district, and make no mistake, predicted traffic movement during construction periods will severely impact our residents. Whether that's getting from A to B, on visitors, events and tourism, or potentially on emergency services, will also impact our businesses, especially farming operations, and will be extremely dangerous. When looking at traffic impact and potential asset damage in my ward, the North Falls peer reports for Bentley Road in Little Bromley show an increase of 1,457% just for North Falls traffic. Looking at North Falls and Five Estuaries together, this rises to 2,559% increase. Bentley Road A120 junction used to be an open crossroads to Little Bentley. Due to safety, traffic now heads to either Horsley Cross or Great Bromley roundabouts to get across to Little Bentley. Some residents on the Little Bromley side of the A120 are actually Little Bentley residents. Rural village roads like these are used for village amenity as much as they are for driving on. It is a route used by cyclists, horse riders, walkers, runners alike. The overall volume of the traffic and the number of HGVs will not only make the road unsafe for use by local people, it will basically sever Little Bromley from the Little Bentley side of the A120. North Falls plan a 5-year construction project as advised at their public consultations events. Bentley Road is not wide enough for 2 HGVs to pass and it has no white lines. The weight limit runs through the village of Little Bromley. When looking at just the HGV movements, that's 503 per day, equating to an average of 42 HGV movements every hour or 1 every 1.5 minutes. These figures do not include National Grid's construction traffic, although I understand from a recent webinar session I attended, they would likely look to use the same route. And Torshon's route is not even known yet, just that National Grid, without actually having planning permission in place yet, has also given them a connection at Little Bromley. Impact and traffic volume will be dire. And whether it's finding a petrol station or heading to a fast food outlet or just finding the quickest route, the traffic related to these developments won't necessarily stay en route. Our roads are already in poor repair, and with this extra volume of traffic, where the substructures nor the width of the road is designed for this level of traffic and HGVs, our roads will simply deteriorate further and faster. Our district will look worse and suffer for it. This deterioration brings with it more safety issues, as well as increased living costs to our residents for vehicle wear and tear. Thorpe Hosoken High Street has always been a bottleneck, and I fully support Councillor Everett's motion. Should this go ahead, this would be a positive legacy for this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairley. Next councillor is Councillor Mark Platt.
Thank you, Chairman. I rise to endorse and thank my colleagues for bringing this item to the Council's attention. Whilst I'm not in favour of the proposal by North Falls, I recognise, like other such schemes, it may be forced upon us. My interest, should the proposal proceed, is legacy. Whilst I would naturally aspire to greater and mightier things in terms of legacy than a road such as this that is being discussed this evening, the Hall Road, that would bypass the village of Thorpe Soken, could be considered part of a legacy of such a project. Therefore, I support the concept of the so-called Hall Road becoming a permanent feature. To quote my colleague, down good roads, wealth flows. Wish I had a pound for every time I heard that. To quote a former Prime Minister, you and I come by road and rail, but economists travel on infrastructure. I thereby encourage all members to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Platt. Next councillor, Councillor Mike Bush.
Thank you, Chairman. And I must say, I welcome Councillor Everett's sort of motion for this. And also listening to other councillors' views, it is quite wide in terms of the various issues that it has, from infrastructure to delivery to roads. I must say, it is a very complex situation, and we need to have detail, I believe, in terms of strengthening the motion going forward. We recognise the National Grid situation, that our MPs, both in Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, and locally, that we've all sort of stated the issues that we've got with overhead cabling and pylons going through that. But they are one part of this equation. We have got the commercial aspects with the offshore wind farms that will be coming through our territory. So this is a national, it's a regional, and it is very much a local issue, as we know. And we will be suffering the impact of that local issue for some time. When I've looked through, when I've read through the motion here tonight and the amendments, I find that there are areas of this that it really needs being pulled together to have some sort of substance. We talk about the legacy of the road. We talk about cheap electricity. We know from the fact that there is no way in the situation with the North Falls or Five Estuaries that they are able to give that discounted electricity. They are selling it off as an auction into the grid, and we will buy it through people that we normally buy our energy from. So we've got to understand that there is compensation potential that we've seen that they can offer, or National Grid can offer for local farms and supporting the communities. That is still very early, it's very premature, but we've got the whole weight of the counties behind us here to look at both the overhead against the undersea cabling and also the onshore. But at this moment, planning applications have not been submitted. We are still in a strong position to actually look at pulling together a motion that really has some strength and weight to address with every element, whether it's from the road and the issues that we have in our local community and the long-term impact. So as far as I'm concerned tonight, I think this motion does not carry for me, and I cannot support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bush. Next councillor is Councillor Andy Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. I've heard my colleagues on the other side, and I fully understand their concerns about the road and everything else. I've just looked up this council's response to the 5 estuaries consultation, where we don't support it. We don't support their connection to the large pylons and everything else. And there's mention in that letter that was sent just after the election about the, bear with me, the Electricity Supply Office is currently looking at, let's put it out to sea. So, and the North Falls response from this council is probably going to be the same wording. So I think this motion is a little bit premature. I can understand the concerns greatly. And Councillor Land spoke from the heart. I was trying to work out if he was born in 1982 at one stage, but I understand the concerns that he have. I think it's too early. I think we need to fight, as have this council. Every single MP in Essex, Suffolk, Norfolk, as Councillor Bush has said, every council, every MP has been totally against the onshore pylon scheme. Hopefully somebody will listen to that, because that's a lot of people saying they don't want it. And as Councillor Everett has alluded to in the motion, if that happens, they will be connected. Well, we don't know. What if? What if? So in its current form, I'm afraid I can't support the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. I don't have Councillor Michael Talbot.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I must say, anything from Councillor Everett is always pretty good from past experience, and this is jolly good. But what actually is it? What it is, it's a formula for, if you agree with this, then you'll get our agreement to put in pylons all across our district. That's what it seems to me. Whereas what we're all on about, all the things we don't like, what we don't like are having pylons here at all. They are 100% support for an undersea connection. We all know, I think it's been said by them, they consider it something, but it's just too expensive. They're a profitable making business. If this is the way it's going to go with the whole of the East Coast in particular, having wind farms there, then the appropriate place for that electricity to be carried is along the coast, undersea, in exactly the same way as ever since our councillor said what year he was born in. That was the year when we started importing electricity from Europe by undersea cables. Don't think it's not practical. It can totally be done. Danny Ladd might not have had anything to do with it as an infant, but it started at that particular time. And it's been going on ever since. And if you think, well, that's not historic enough, I'm sure we all know, I certainly wasn't there at the time, but in the 1860s, the first undersea Atlantic cable was put in. Now, mind you, that was for telephone use, I grant, and not for high power. But it does show that undersea cables are a successful method of transporting electricity in a number of forms. It's just a question of cost. That's all they're worried about. They're worried about the cost of it. They don't say it couldn't be done or it's not practical or it isn't the way forward. They just say it's too expensive. So they want to go back to these ancient pylons which despoil our countryside. All the other things that have been mentioned, which I totally support, all the disruption, the traffic problems, the fact that Salt really is almost an urban area in the way in which it's used. But nevertheless, colleagues, I really do think that if we were to carry this, what we're really saying is, well, if you can do this, National Grid or North Falls or whatever, if you can do this, that's okay with us. It's not bloody, excuse me, it's not okay with us. It's not okay with us. We don't want it at all. What we want is all our strength pressing for the undersea cable and no cooperation at all with hundreds of pylons going all the way from Norwich to Tilbury to provide extra electric power for London. Look, with red lights come on, so I shut up there. But I feel, as much as I like what's said and the comments that have been made, Chairman, I think it's premature. If it is actually forced upon us, then that might be the time to put some of these things forward. But let's put our pressure and our effort behind those authorities who are pressing hard for this to be an undersea transmission of electricity from this wind farm and for the others proposed in the future. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Tolbert. I have no other speakers. We go to Councillor Turner, who's reserved his right to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. North Falls, in conjunction with 5 estuaries, is but one of the 2 proposed projects due to make landfall close to or through my ward, Frinton-on-Sea. We now have a third. The Germans wish to invade along the same path for their Tarchon interconnector scheme. That will allow a flow of electricity to and from Germany. All jolly good schemes, all very expensive schemes, all national strategic infrastructural schemes, all to be decided by a minister and not us. These schemes, all individual and only just beginning to recognise each other, cut a swathe if they follow a similar path across our district to the heartlands of 100 to 120 metres wide, require 3 by 20 compounds for all the heavy machinery and similar amount of land for each substation to join up with the National Grid's Norwich to Tilbury overhead line. That proposal is diverting its path into tendering just so these projects do not have so far to go, but will also require 40 to 50 acres for a substation. We cannot use this electricity. It is too powerful at 400 kA. We are green, as the Gunfleet wind farm supplies all our needs and then some. So what's in it for us? North Falls, 5 estuaries, or Tarchon, when asked to come up with a lasting legacy or to show us any Danegeld or planning gain, no, none, zero, zilch, don't know, can't, won't. We are discussing the biggest civil engineering project this council has ever seen. Each scheme is in the order of £1.5 billion plus. To gain lasting legacy, it is essential for tendering and a way of levelling us up and of reducing the deprivation. These are absolute essentials and coming up on every radar screen at national level and now coming down to regional and local level. The motion before us is but one idea for a lasting legacy. Please support. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Now we go to the proposer, Councillor Everett.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed because what we're talking about here primarily is a consultation, a formal consultation by the North Falls that we need to get a response into by Friday. I've heard the good words from opposite and our side, and actually, clearly there is a feeling that there is something here that needs to be got hold of. But there seems to be a fear about when we do that, which means that we will lose the opportunity to put in to the consultation for North Falls what we as a council would like to see. And I think that's been shown by everybody, both sides of the chamber here, that the point about legacy is important. It was mentioned in nearly every speech from this council. So I would hope that actually all of us can get behind this motion so that we can send a message to North Falls by Friday for their consultation and a wider message about the intent of this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. Now we go to Councillor Stevenson, the leader.
Thank you, Chairman. So where do I start? Let's start with the offshore. Tendring has no problem with the offshore, never has. We've already got them. Happy to have quite a few more. When it touches land, it causes the problems, and it always has done. We have two schemes, North Falls and Five Estuaries, and we're only talking about one tonight, but there are two. And there's a third one coming with the Tarkaron Inconnector, if I pronounced that correctly. And it's very interesting that North Falls falls on such a day, and 5 years later, Five Estuaries might then come and dig up at what North Falls did. And then when they've done what they're doing, Tarkaron will come up and dig up what they did, because they're not working together and they're not working collectively. It's a problem. We know it's a problem. What, in my mind, is interesting, shall we say, is that we can't put a pipe round the coast, but we can lay one from Germany to where it's going to come. It's not just going to land in between Clacton and Frinton. It's going to carve its way back across to the substations in the north of our district. And I just think that's a joke, that in itself. Now, not many of our towns and villages will be unaffected by such a vast and wide project. And I think this motion is sending mixed signals. It's the problem, it's preemptive, and we should stand with ECC and a whole host of other boroughs and district councils who have sent a resounding no to this project. Whilst we will see this vote, we will vote this down, and that will take away the point of B. I'm not sure how it will be received, but we should and try to get these three companies together to look at the collective impact on this district. I thank Richard for bringing the much wanted and additional spotlight, but this will affect many residents for many years, and so we should focus on its defeat and not its capitulation. And for that reason, we cannot support this motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. Mr. Davison will just speak.
Just to clarify now, so you are now going to the vote on the amendment to the substantive motion. So you will, I'll ask the chairman to come to you in a moment. So you will vote on the amendment to the substantive motion. If that passes, that becomes a substantive motion, and you will vote then on the substantive motion. If it fails and it falls, then your motion reverts back to the original motion, which is in the book, and that becomes your substantive motion, and you will then vote on that. So there will be two votes, whichever way round the outcome of the first vote is. I hope that helps. You've got Councillor Everett, who I think wants clarification.
Councillor Everett.
Can I request a recorded motion, a recorded vote, please?
So you're asking for a named vote? Thank you. That's more than we need for a named vote. I will hand this over to the Chief Exec at this point.
Thank you, councillors. I will call out your name. Please say you're for, against, or abstaining from voting against the amendment which is put before you. Councillor Amos, are we ready? Councillor Amos. Councillor Baker. Thank you.
Councillors, when you're doing the votes, can you please use the microphone? Because we have to bear in mind there are people streaming in, and we just need to know who are the councillors that are voting for this amendment. So please use your microphone when the officer, Mr. Davison, calls your name. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll start again just for clarity. Councillor Amos.
For.
Councillor Baker.
Against.
Councillor Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Barry.
Against.
Councillor Ben-Sillam.
Against.
Councillor Bray.
For.
Councillor Bush.
Against.
Councillor Calver. Councillor Casey.
Against.
Councillor Chapman.
Against.
Councillor Codling.
For.
Councillor Andrea Cousins. Councillor Mark Cousins.
For.
Councillor Davidson.
Against.
Councillor Doyle.
Against.
Councillor Everett. For. Councillor Fairley.
For.
Councillor Fowler.
Against.
Councillor Griffiths.
For.
Councillor Guglielmi. For. Councillor Ivan Henderson.
Against.
Councillor Joe Henderson.
Against.
Councillor Paul Honeywood.
For.
Councillor Sue Honeywood.
For.
Councillor Land.
For.
Councillor McWilliams.
For.
Councillor Morrison.
Against.
Councillor Newton.
Against.
Councillor Oxley. Councillor Placey.
Against.
Councillor Platt. Councillor Scott.
Against.
Councillor Skeels.
For.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Steady.
Against.
Councillor Gemma Stevenson.
Against.
Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Against.
Councillor Sudra.
Against.
Councillor Talbot.
Against.
Councillor Thompson.
Against.
Councillor Turner.
For.
And Councillor White.
Against.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, councillors. The officers will just check on the votes and I'll come back to you with results. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, for the amendment 16, against the amendment 26. So the amendment falls. Now we revert back to the substantial motion. Councillor Guglielmi.
I won't name vote again, Chairman.
Thank you, councillors. Now, obviously, this is another vote and also a debate. So will councillors want to debate this at all? Please indicate. Councillor Daniel Land.
Thank you, Chairman. Not quite either, as I'd expected the mood around the room to go. However, I would just like to say that it would have been poorly judged for me not to have backed that motion on behalf of what is being discussed as a key part of the motion being Thorpe Soken. I would not have wanted to have gone back to my residents and had to explain that I had not stood up for this motion. So whilst I also take on board some of the comments that are coming from the other side, I think it's important to note that this is a government infrastructure project which will be decided by the government, not by a planning application that will come to TDC. And whilst I appreciate that most of the dialogue so far around these schemes has been a complete refusal, I think most of my colleagues in their speeches had said, or I'm not sure I did, this is a very much a should anyone be mindful to approve this. We want to at least have had discussions and have been thinking about what might a legacy look like. So I just want to be clear on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Land. Next councillor is Councillor Carlo Guglielmi.
Chairman, likewise, I'm quite disappointed that the administration has not taken the spirit of this motion. It is very much, as I said in my previous speech, filling your basket with goodies. How many times have we gone to appeals where we've not put forward what we wished we should have had, and it's been too late? If this is inevitable, that's going to be forced upon us, then let's make sure that we put something. Let's put a mark in the sand as soon as we possibly can, and not wait until it's fait accompli, when it's too late to secure anything. I think, the consultation closes in a couple of days. So it is now very much the time for it for us to state what we would like to see should this be forced upon us. Nobody wants it. And in fact, this chamber debated last year the Stanger Green project, and were unanimous in not wanting that to progress. And absolutely right, the council has put the responses to all of those. They've been one after the other. This only seeks to secure some goodies should the proposal be given the green light. So I think it's been misunderstood, and I'm very disappointed that the administration has not taken that in the spirit they should have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guglielmi. Now, Councillor Nick Turner.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I echo Councillor Guglielmi's thoughts. In my penultimate paragraph, I stated, to gain a lasting legacy is essential for tendering and a way of levelling us up and reducing the deprivation of tendering. Now, I sit on many things and attend lots of webinars, and without a shadow of a doubt, the straws in the wind, and they're becoming bales now, are that part of the levelling up agenda is to gain legacy from these great civil engineering schemes that are going around our coast, in particularly southern Suffolk. They are estimating with Sizewell C, 10,000 workers are going to need to be housed there. It will be a major building site for probably a generation. And they're looking too, what can they get out of it? Now, if we don't get in early on with somebody say a basket of goodies and asking, and thereby reducing our deprivation and thereby improving this district, then we failed in our duty. And I'll give you 3 other ideas that I've come up with, and my town council has, and we have pursued. Firstly, the cycle route 150, which is a national cycle road, made good from Holland Haven to Frinton and be a similar standard as the new pedal power infrastructure improvements of West Clacton adopted by the Essex County Council. Thirdly, under the Shoreline Management Plan, Epoch 3, this is Anorak, 2055, 2105, for the sea walls from the Whalings, beach huts on stilts, from Frinton to Holland Haven, we hold the line. I've been fighting this since 2009. At present, it is hold the line or manage realignment. A sum of money be put aside for the EA, Environment Agency, to be able to change their policy to hold the line through 2105. And finally, and this is the biggie, a small charge be placed on the electricity passing through all the cables this to go into a fund for all the communities affected and to be used for their benefits. Now, we may not get any of those, but at least we tried. We may only get one. Even that would be a vast improvement of what we've already got or what's likely to come our way. If we got 2 or 3 of those, boy, we'd be in clover. And this area will improve no end. So I do feel it is disappointing that you can't, because we're not committing the council anything, we're just making comments to a consultation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Now we go to Councillor Mark Cousins.
No, thank you, Chairman. I wasn't actually going to really speak at all to this, but I think most of my working life has been spent in agriculture in various roles. Firstly, as a farm manager, where probably primarily I considered myself a custodian of the countryside, and hence would rather see, the power go offshore. Latterly, I worked as a fertiliser rep and probably worked in the area where the pylons are going to go up and down the East Coast. So I spent many hours walking in the countryside, enjoying it as it is. But I now commute to Housestead almost on a daily journey and pass all the anti-pylon signs. So I'd rather, consider myself as a supporter of the status quo and protecting the countryside. But I also have to pass through Thorpe-le-Soken every single day on that journey. And yesterday morning, there was an HGV coming one way, an HGV was going out, and within minutes, you've got traffic backed all the way up to Kirby Cross. So I would only be supporting this motion, and the only reason I support this motion is because of what might be. And I would only think that we were doing anything if the government inspector was mindful to approve. Because another experience I have at the moment is that having elderly parents who need visiting more frequently, I have the sort of job to go up and visit them on the Oxfordshire-Buckinghamshire border. And there you've got all the works of Crossrail. I mean, you've got huge compounds of heavy machinery dotted around the countryside, connected by haul roads that cross the permanent A roads, but have traffic signals that allow all the dump trucks to cross when they want to. The locals are held up. But I remember all the times, I mean, my mother's been a parish councillor up there, and everybody was fighting tooth and nail against Crossrail because locals only see that it's the people on either end of the track that were really going to see any benefits. And in the end, they fought a hard campaign, but of course, being in the national interest, it was approved. We now see up there absolutely no benefit to the locals whatsoever. When I was up there about 3 weeks ago, I had to go on a 10-mile detour to visit a friend who is literally 200 yards up the road because they've removed one of the bridges over the railway. So I think we needed to be in there earlier, and this is what this motion was going to do, give us an opportunity to make a comment, because by the time it all happens, it will probably be too late. And I did actually spend quite a few years as a councillor, well, have spent quite a few years as a councillor on 4 different councils, including on Thorpe-le-Soken Parish Council, where I think we've been waiting perhaps for a relief road for 50 years. And we lose this opportunity, it might be another 50 years before we get to do something. And I think my only regrets in council life is not seeing the opportunities often and not acting on them. And I think we've just missed that opportunity.
Thank you, Councillor Cousins. Next councillor is Councillor Gary Culver.
Thank you, Chair. The word disappointment has been used a lot on the opposition benches. I would like to use it as well. I would like to express my disappointment that the motion was tabled in the first place, because it is far too soon and it is a show of weakness. With all the authorities and organisations fighting to stop this in its tracks, those wishing it to go ahead would love to see a chink in the armour and see an authority beginning to show weakness and say, well, we need to do this, we need to do that, you know, in case you do what you want. That day will come when we have to fight and we have to make that stand. It isn't now. The best way forward at the moment is to show unity and strength with all the other organisations and authorities that are trying to stop this project in its tracks. And this motion would have weakened that ability. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Culver. Next, Councillor Ivan Henderson.
Thank you, Chairman. And Councillor Culver has just taken the words out of my mouth, because this reminds me very much of years and years ago when we were talking about Bathside Bay and all the opposition to that, the massive impact on our environment and all those environmentalists and groups who were trying to stop it and putting arguments up against it. But the reason it went through in the end, because people were asking for so much to be done, like the A120, by the way, which has now been decoupled by Hutchison Ports for that Bathside Bay, improvements to the Nuneaton line on the railways to help more freight go on the railway, small boat harbours and everything else. And I think that's the point that what members are saying here. They're not against a compensation package, but it's not the right time for that compensation package to go forward now. Because exactly what Councillor Culver said, you can't on one hand be saying as members that we are totally against onshore development and infrastructure. And on the other hand say, well, if you put these things in place, if I was the developer or the investor, the planner, the proposer, I would look at this and possibly think, because it's not a lot of money to them, oh, well, if we put that there, this can then go ahead, we've met that, and that will then go to the inspector and to the Secretary of State, who will look at it and possibly use, what is it called, the override and public interest to make sure this goes ahead, because of the need. At that time, it was a need for a port. On this time, it's going to be a need for energy security for this country. You're making a big mistake. You're actually breaking ranks with all the rest of those people who are actually standing fast on the principle of standing on and making sure that there are not inland pylons and making sure that this is all offshore. You're weakening your argument, and I just wonder why we haven't heard this coming from Essex County Council, being the Highways Authority. Where's their compensation package? Where's their call and ask? Why haven't we heard that yet? I think they're standing fast with the MPs and everyone else around the country to make sure that we focus on the anti-pylon situation and make sure the money's invested for that offshore infrastructure. Don't go down this route. You're weakening your argument. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Next, Councillor Jeff Bray.
Thank you, Chairman. Much has been said, and much of it I agree with, and I refer back to the fact that we did answer a consultation some time ago, and I was portfolio at the time, so I'm aware of that. And in that consultation, I think we made it extremely clear that we don't want pylons at all. Unfortunately, I'm slightly less confident than the member for St Joseph. He is absolutely right. It's perfectly feasible to put these cables underwater. Of course it is. There's thousands of cables underwater. The question is, will it happen? Well, maybe, but I think the percentage chance is probably quite small because, as was mentioned by a couple of people, it'll come down to cost. We all know that that's an issue. I don't want these pylons, and I think everyone in this room is of that same view. I don't think anybody in this room wants to see those pylons anywhere near tendering. I don't want them anywhere near here. But if they are forced upon us, I don't want us to have left it too late to get something back. That's my concern. The consultation, as we've been told, ends Friday. That's not Friday next year, that's Friday. We have to put something in. There is no reason why we can't continue to oppose, and vigorously, and I'm certain the Deputy Leader of the Opposition on that, I'm quite happy to oppose vigorously, and he knows that I'm very able to do that, as is he, and we will do that. But we must have a backup. There must be a backup. The worst scenario is that it doesn't go under the sea, and we don't get any benefit. And we must have some kind of backstop to stop that worst scenario. More for the best scenario, let's have it. No pylons, power under the sea. To be honest, I'd be down there with you digging some of the holes. I'm happy, no problem. Everybody wants that. But let's not make a backup plan where if we don't get that, because remember, this decision will be made by the Secretary of State, not by us, and it will be based on cost, because all decisions are. If that does happen, let's at least get something tangible and something useful for the people we're here. I agree, no pylons, first choice every time, by a country mile. But if we do find ourselves having to have them, let's make sure we get something for it. That's my only argument. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Now we go to the mover of the motion, Councillor Richard Everett, sorry.
Or even Everett, yeah, thank you. I couldn't agree more with what Councillor Bray has just said. It really does encapsulate it. We're not trying to undermine the fight against the great grid upgrade, because we don't want it any more than you do. We want that to be at sea and in a different manner. But what we're talking about here is the North Falls statutory consultation. That finishes on Friday. We need to get in, as many politicians would characterise it, we need to get our retaliation in early. So please, I beg of you, this is really important. It's important for our district. Our district will suffer badly if we do not get some sort of legacy out of this project. I think that's enough said. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Everett. I do apologise to Mr Barrett for promoting you to Councillor again. Now we go over now to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I think quite a lot's been said tonight, so I'll be brief. I think what we should take from this is that we all pretty much agree on the problem, and there will be massive disruption if this goes ahead, regardless of whether there is legacy or not. And we totally agree with that disruption being a problem, and that is the main reason why we will not capitulate or bribe our way into something lesser. We will oppose this, and that's why we will not support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stevenson. The Chief Exec, Councillor Everett.
Can you have a name vote on that as well, please?
You'd like to stand, please? Right. Mr. Davidson will then take it from here.
Thank you. Just to clarify that you did ask for a name vote previously, which we counted that. So. Okay, so this is now the substantive motion, which is as per your agenda, and I'm now going to read out your name. Please say if you're for, against, or abstain to the substantive motion, which is as per your agenda. Councillor Amos.
For.
Councillor Baker.
Against.
Councillor Barrett.
Against.
Councillor Barry.
Against.
Councillor Ben Sillam.
Against.
Councillor Bray.
For.
Councillor Bush.
Against.
Councillor Calver.
Against.
Councillor Casey.
Against.
Councillor Chapman.
Against.
Councillor Codling.
For.
Councillor Andrea Cozzens.
For.
Councillor Mark Cozzens.
For.
Councillor Davidson.
Against.
Councillor Doyle.
Against.
Councillor Everett.
For.
Councillor Fairley.
For.
Councillor Fowler.
Against.
Councillor Griffiths.
For.
Councillor Guglielmi. Councillor Ivan Henderson.
Against.
Councillor Joe Henderson.
Against.
Councillor Paul Honeywood.
For.
Councillor Sue Honeywood.
For.
Councillor Land.
For.
Councillor McWilliams.
For.
Councillor Morrison.
Against.
Councillor Newton.
Against.
Councillor Oxley.
Against.
Councillor Placey.
Against.
Councillor Platt.
For.
Councillor Scott.
Against.
Councillor Skills.
For.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Steady.
Against.
Councillor Gemma Stevenson.
Against.
Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Against.
Councillor Sudra.
Against.
Councillor Talbot.
Against.
Councillor Thompson.
Against.
Councillor Turner.
For.
And Councillor White.
Against.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, Mr. Davison. This is the vote for the motion. For the motion, 16. Against the motion, 26. So that motion falls. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 15. Recommendation from Cabinet motion to Council ring fencing of capital receipts arising from disposal of surplus land, pages 133 and 142. Councillor Steady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd actually like to withdraw the motion, basically because it's a unique situation. I brought this motion to the last council, which was a previous administration. It was then referred to Cabinet, which is a new administration. And obviously, while members might have understood the sentiment of my motion, there is a current review of the 69 sites, which is ongoing at the moment, and hopefully consideration will be given to items in my motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman, as the seconder.
Yes, that gives me pleasure to second the withdrawal of the motion.
Thank you. So the item for that now falls and is withdrawn. So we go on to the next item. Item number 16, reports submitted to the Council by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, reference from the Council's two Overview and Scrutiny Committees, A3, Overview and Scrutiny Committee's proposed work programmes for 2023 and 24, and a review of the works carried out during 2022 to 23. The reports circulated. Councillor Steady.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I would like to move the adoption of the reports as noted.
Councillor Honeywood. Paul
Yes,
Honeywood.
Yes, if he needs a second of his, I'm happy to do that, and I'd like to move my committees.
Thank you. All agreed? Thank you. Next item is item 17, report the Chief Exec A4, membership of committees, pages 143 and 144.
Thank you, Chairman. It's as per your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 18, seating plan for meetings of full council in the 23-24 municipal year, pages 145 to 146. Councillor Mark Stevenson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to move that as is read.
Councillor Guglielmi.
We're in our places. I second that.
Yes, it does look differently from the other side, doesn't it? Do we all agree on that? Thank you. Item number 19, questions pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 11.2, pages 147 to 148. And the first question is from Councillor Chris Griffiths to Councillor Gina Placey, portfolio holder for partnerships. Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a bit new, so you'll have to bear with me. The question relates to proposed upgrades to the council's existing CCTV cameras and 29 new CCTV cameras for Clacton Town Centre, along with improved control and increased monitoring. So the question to the portfolio holder is, could you please update this council as to when you expect to see this much needed project, which was initiated by the previous Conservative administration, completed and operational. And I do think, as a matter of note, that it would be helpful if officers rewrote members' questions, that there was some, shall we say, correspondence to say that members' questions had been altered, because many of my constituents are very concerned about town centre safety, and having an official rewrite questions regarding CCTV monitoring is not ideal.
Councillor Griffiths, you've read the question. I don't recall seeing any of the added wording in your question, so I'll leave it there and I'll let Councillor...
I apologise on that behalf, Mr Chairman, but had we had the original question, it would have been there.
Thank you. I'm sure the officers have taken note of your request. Councillor Placey.
Yeah, Councillor Griffiths, I've got the original question, so I was a bit surprised to see that differently. But as I think you raised, the council successfully secured. Sorry.
Can you stop for a moment? Mrs. Hastings is going to say a few words.
Okay. I think it's only fair to clarify for all members present and for the public listening to the meeting. The question submitted by the Councillor Griffiths has not been amended by anybody. What has happened is the preamble to the question has been removed in accordance with the council procedure rules, which this council approved earlier on this year. So we do accept as officers that the communication may have could have been improved, Councillor Griffiths, and we have had that correspondence with Councillor Honeywood. However, no officer has amended a question that a councillor has put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hastings. Back to you, Councillor Placey.
Okay, yeah, the question is still there. So again, the council successfully secured Safer Street funding early in 2023. However, due to the costs of the cameras and the installation, council has had to go through a procurement process in accordance with council procedures. At the end of May 2023, the successful bidder was informed, and I have just been actually recently informed that though we were awaiting the signed contract last week, we have now got it. It is envisaged that the work will commence in mid-July, and completion of the CCTV upgrades and installation of new cameras, together with the additional lighting, which is the first stage of the project, should be completed within 3 months of the start date. This will take us to mid-October. The improvements to the control centre and monitoring of the CCTV cameras will be taking place whilst the CCTV and lighting works are carried out in the town centre. 2 part-time CCTV operators will be recruited and commence employment before the completion of the project to enable the system to be fully operational. The system will be fully operational by early October this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Placey. Councillor Griffiths, would you like to ask a point of clarification?
Oh, okay. I'd just like to thank the portfolio holder for a full and prompt response, and I'm sure the people of Clacton will be feeling a lot safer once it's all installed.
Thank you.
By the way, was that an apology from the monitoring officer that we had before over not telling me that my question had been amended?
Councillor Griffiths, I'm going to go on to the next question. Mrs. Hastings has already explained the reasoning behind that. So I'm going to go on to the next question. It's from Councillor Paul Honeywood to Councillor Mick Barry, portfolio holder for Leisure and Public Realm. Councillor Paul Honeywood.
Thank you, Chairman. This June, I have received more emails and phone calls raising concerns about Clacton seafront and beaches than ever before. Volunteers using their spare time to remove large amounts of litter from our seafront and beaches have also been in touch to highlight their concerns. Concerns include both black and blue waste bins left overflowing, insufficient bins to cope with the demand, and a clear impression that our current services are being overwhelmed. It is worrying to hear that used blue gas canisters are being found amongst the litter left on the beaches. Given we have the peak season ahead of us, can the portfolio holder tell this council what additional action above that already planned will be taken to tackle these problems?
Thank you, Councillor Paul Honeywood. Councillor Mick Barry, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Honeywood, for your question, which is highlighting an issue that I'm sure previous administrations have had to deal with on many occasions. It's a difficult seasonal issue and one that is covered by the summer plan for our beaches and seafronts. I firstly say that I'm grateful for the time taken by volunteers in helping to keep our beaches and open spaces clean and free from litter. Our officers and staff continue to monitor and inspect our seafront areas, and I can confirm that additional blue seafront bins are being installed by our contractor to assist with the collection and storage of litter and waste generated by the very welcome visitors to our beaches and promenades. Whilst these blue seafront litter bins provide a greater capacity to store litter, we will continue to raise awareness and ask visitors, when confronted with a full litter bin, to either take their waste home with them or find a bin with spare capacity. With the main school holiday period commencing later this month, the frequency of litter bin emptying will be further increased to reflect the increased footfall and demand placed upon the seafronts. As portfolio holder for this area, I'm pleased that we are attracting visitors and confirming our strong tourist economy, but also mindful that we have to deal with the problems that comes with this success.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Councillor Paul Honeywood, would you like to point of clarification?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for confirming additional bin installation and collection measures. Can you please clarify, are they in addition to the measures that have already been planned and put in place?
Councillor Barry, Mick Barry.
Yeah, thank you for that supplementary, and I can confirm from Jonathan Hamlet that he has asked Veolia to install an additional 20 blue bins along this section. I think that's the pier to Martello, and which will provide an additional 6,800 litres capacity and significantly increase the number of bins along this section. As mentioned yesterday, an additional 15 bins are also being deployed to Frinton and Walton.
Thank you very much. Item number 20, urgent matters for debate. There are none. Next scheduled meeting of the council is Tuesday, 26th of September 2023 at 7:30, Princess Beard Town Hall here in Clacton. Thank you for coming. I close the meeting. Many thanks.
Please be upstanding.